All right, so are you ready to like really get into Halsey's new album,
Yeah, let's do it.
The Great Impersonator?
I'm excited.
Yeah, this album, it's their career has been anything but predictable, you know?
Sure.
We've got the Wikipedia article on the album, and like I think our mission today is to figure out like, is this Halsey's most personal work yet?
It's a really good question, and especially considering this album drops almost exactly 10 years after Room 93,
Oh, wow.
their debut EP, and that's like,
That's a whole decade.
yeah, it's a lot of life lived, you know?
Yeah.
And it feels like Halsey poured it all into this one.
And especially like what they were going through during its creation.
Right.
The article mentions a lupus diagnosis,
Oh, wow.
a T-cell disorder, and becoming a parent
Yeah.
all at the same time.
It's a lot.
It's heavy stuff.
It really is. And on top of all that, Halsey even said that they thought this would be their final album.
Really?
Which, like, that statement alone
Wow.
makes you listen to the album different,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
Like, is this a farewell? Is this like a culmination of their work?
Totally adds like a layer of weight to it all.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of weightiness, there's this dramatic synopsis that Halsey released.
Okay.
It reads, "Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Behold the marvel of a century. Witness the uncanny ability of a woman who can become anyone, anything your heart desires. Friend, lover, foe. She transforms before your very eyes. Her voice and visage a reflection of your deepest dream and darkest fears. But beware, for she is not just a master of disguise, but a spirit of transformation slipping between the cracks of reality. One moment, a beloved friend, the next. A shadowy nightmare. She is the queen of the uncanny, the mistress of metamorphosis. Beware of the great impersonator."
Okay, so,
That's intense.
yeah, it's not your average album description.
Right.
It's like a horror movie trailer.
Yeah, so do you think like this darkness, this like theatrical darkness, does that point to like a new direction for Halsey?
Well, I think it's more nuanced than that, you know? Like, remember the album's called The Great Impersonator, and, like, Halsey was grappling with some really serious health issues at the time,
Mm-hmm.
which can make you feel like a stranger in your own body,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
And that's one level of impersonation right there.
Ah, so it's not just about putting on different musical hats.
Exactly. It's also about the internal struggles, the sense of self that might have felt fragmented during that time.
Yeah, I see that. And then there's the external impersonation, like the promotional campaign.
Yes.
They did this global scavenger hunt for the album art,
Yeah. So creative.
which is super creative.
Yeah.
But even more intriguing is that they were impersonating different musical icons every day leading up to the release.
Yeah. It's brilliant marketing,
Yeah.
and it got everyone talking.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia article lists a few, like Dolly Parton, David Bowie, Britney Spears. But I'd really encourage you to look up the full list. It's really diverse.
Oh, I will. That actually makes me wonder, do you think like those impersonations actually influenced the album's sound itself? Because the genre list is pretty expansive: pop rock, alternative rock, indie rock folk, even straight up pop.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. You know, Halsey has always drawn from a wide range of influences, but maybe these daily impersonations push them to experiment even further.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of personal struggle, this theatrical concept of impersonation, and this wild mix of musical genres.
Mm.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
What are the main themes that Halsey is exploring in the music itself?
Well, it gets very personal very quickly.
Okay.
There are reflections on mortality, likely tied to the health challenges. Trauma, both emotional and maybe even physical,
Yeah.
weaves its way through the lyrics. Family relationships, especially with a new child in the picture, are a major focus. And then there's legacy, the idea of what you leave behind.
Wow, that's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds like all of these themes are filtered through this idea of like, what if I was making music in a different decade?
Yeah.
Almost like time travel through sound.
Yeah, precisely. It's not just about wearing different musical costumes. It's about channeling the energy and anxieties of those eras.
Yeah.
How would Halsey's experiences translate in the 70s, the 90s? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
It's fascinating.
Okay, so critics must have had a field day with this one.
Yeah.
What was the overall reception like?
Mostly positive.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it is such a complex album.
Yeah.
A lot of praise for the raw honesty and how ambitious it is sonically. AllMusic even said that Halsey is coming full circle, connecting their earlier work to these more mature reflections.
Coming full circle. I like that, but I'm sure not everyone was on board, right?
Right. Pitchfork, for instance, wasn't as convinced by the impersonation aspect.
Okay.
They felt it wasn't always successful, sometimes feeling more like mimicry than genuine artistic exploration.
That's fair. Not every artistic risk pays off. But I love that Halsey actually responded to that Pitchfork review,
Oh, really?
saying that art is subjective and everyone's interpretation is valid.
That's great.
Which, by the way, I totally agree with. What about you? Did the impersonations land for you?
I think it's a mixed bag. There are moments where it feels truly transformative.
Yeah.
Like Halsey is inhabiting this different persona entirely, but then there are other times where it feels a little more surface level.
Right.
More like a stylistic homage.
Yeah.
It's like a challenging concept to pull off consistently.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
like walking a tightrope between, genuine exploration and just like pastiche.
Right.
But hey, even if not every impersonation hits the mark, the fact that they even took such a bold risk is pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I think it speaks to their artistic ambition and their willingness to push boundaries. And speaking of ambition, let's talk about the album's commercial performance for a sec. It debuted at #2 on the Billboard 200,
Wow.
making it their 5th consecutive album to chart in the top 2.
That's wild. That's like a
Yeah.
testament to their staying power,
Right.
evolving their sound while still like connecting with this huge audience.
Exactly.
But rankings aside, let's get into like the heart of it.
Yes. The track list itself.
Oh.
There were a few things that really stood out to me, like the Letter to God triptych.
Yes.
Having 3 songs with that title spanning different decades is such a cool concept.
It's brilliant, right? It allows Halsey to kind of explore their evolution of their faith and spirituality over time.
Yeah.
You can almost trace like the changes in their perspective and the questions they're grappling with as they move through these different decades.
It's like a musical time capsule of faith.
Yeah.
And then there's the collaboration with their son, Ender Ridley, on I Believe in Magic that just melts my heart.
Oh.
What a beautiful way to capture a specific moment in time,
Yeah.
a shared experience between parent and child.
It adds such a tender dimension to the album, and it also kind of plays into the impersonation theme a little bit.
Oh, how so?
Well, children often mimic their parents, right? They
Right.
try on different roles and identities as they grow.
Yeah.
So there's this beautiful mirroring happening within the song itself.
Oh, that's a great point. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. It adds another layer of complexity to like the whole concept.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Lucky, which interpolates both Britney Spears' Lucky and Monica's Angel of Mine.
That's one of the moments where I think the impersonation concept really shines.
Yeah.
It's not just a sample. It's like a reinterpretation, a weaving together of these two iconic songs
Right.
into something totally new.
Yeah.
And it shows how Halsey can take these diverse influences and create something that's both familiar and fresh.
It's like musical alchemy.
Yes.
Blending those classic elements into something golden. And it also makes you think about the influence of those artists on Halsey's own journey. It's like they're
Yeah.
saying, these are the voices that shaped me, and this is how I'm carrying their legacy forward.
Exactly. And it brings us back to that central question. Is this Halsey's most personal album yet? And I think the answer is a resounding yes.
I'm inclined to agree the level of vulnerability, like the exploration of such intimate themes, and even the inclusion of their son, it all points to like a deeply personal artistic statement.
Yeah, it's an album that invites you into Halsey's world, their struggles, their joys, their evolution as an artist and as a person. And I think that's what makes it so compelling.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground here, but before we wrap up, I have one final question for you, dear listener. If Halsey was going to continue this impersonation concept, what artist would you like to see them channel next?
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a fun thought experiment, right?
Yeah.
Like whose sound would blend well with Halsey's, and maybe like push them in a exciting new direction.
It's a great question. And honestly, it's tough to choose just one.
Yeah.
I think there's so many possibilities, and Halsey definitely has the talent and the range to pull off some really surprising combinations.
Yeah, I'm already picturing Halsey like channeling a bluesy Janis Joplin vibe, or like maybe even going full on glam rock a la David Bowie.
I love that.
What about you?
What if they went full on country? Like a Dolly Parton inspired ballad?
Yeah.
Or maybe even dabbled in some jazz, like channeling the smooth vocals of Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
I think those genres could bring out a whole new side of their voice.
Those are great suggestions. It just goes to show that even after dissecting this whole album, there's still so much left to discover, so much potential for Halsey to continue evolving and pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. And that's what makes The Great Impersonator such a rewarding listen.
Yeah.
It's an album that keeps you thinking, keeps you coming back for more,
Right.
It's not just about the music, it's about the journey, the exploration.
Yeah.
The constant evolution of an artist who's clearly not afraid to take risks.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll leave you to go experience the Great Impersonator for yourself.
Yes.
See if you can spot like those subtle impersonations, those echoes of musical icons woven into Halsey's unique sound.
Happy listening. And remember, the beauty of music lies in its ability to connect with each of us in a unique and personal way. So let yourself get lost in the sounds, the stories, and the emotions that Halsey so brilliantly brings to life.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining me today.
Of course this was fun.